because it's a death sentence in developing countries. Disabilities in developing countries are not looked upon in a favorable light. Families shun their own children. They will not care for them. They have looked upon their children as a source of income. So a person who is physically challenged has to be able to make a living. So an amputee or someone who is physically challenged is reduced to the lowest form of making an income, and that's becoming a beggar. That person, now life is over, because that's all they see themselves doing. Whatever aspirations, whatever thoughts they had prior to their disability, or even as a small child, we all had dreams and aspirations, and those are gone because there is very little opportunity for them to change their consciousness. As you will pay attention to situations like in Haiti, situations like in Sierra Leone, where there is a massive destruction, where there is amputation taking place, whether because of a, how do we say, an earthquake, or a rebels committing atrocities by amputating people. We rush in, we being the American Red Cross, Doctors Without Borders, or organizations rush in to help. And what they do? Provide someone who's now, let's just take an example, a 10-year-old with an artificial limb. Okay, that's great idea. Okay, now, 10 years later, everybody's gone. That person is now 20, still trying to make it on that limb that he got at 10 years old. So what have you done? Nothing. The other part of that is that mobility is just the first, should only be the first step. Because now that 10-year-old or that 20-year-old needs to have the opportunity to have a chance to raise a family, a chance to have, make a living for themselves. And those opportunities don't exist. There are very few countries that have any laws, disability laws, that are geared towards people with physical challenges to provide job opportunities. I don't know that I can honestly describe the awesome feeling. You know, as a kid and even as an adult, being a Christian, you know, we read stories in the Bible about Jesus, if you will, laying hands on people, and miraculously they now can see and they can walk. Well, to me they were stories. You know, I'd never experienced anything like that in my life. And when I had an opportunity, Jonathan is his name, was our first amputee in the Dominican. Jonathan was 20 years old, working 40 hours a week on 2 legs and 2 crutches and 1 leg. To see him stand up for the first time on 2 legs without any crutches and see the smile on his face, I can't tell you, there was a movement in the room, you know. You knew that there was more than just us, and there's 40 of us in the room, but you knew and felt there was a presence beyond us in that room. And I'm not the only one that felt it. We all felt it in the room. It moved us all to actually tears. So I'm trying to always repeat that. I had the opportunity to, by chance, find a guy by the name of Jim DeWeese, who's an amputee and who has a clinic in Indiana. And I got a chance to speak to him. And it's through him that I learned a lot about prostheses and how to recycle them or reuse them in developing countries. His story was similar to mine, and how I got involved, being in seeing this young lady in South Africa. So I learned a lot from him, and then using the internet, and then meeting other technicians, if you will. I learned a lot. And then, as you know, in the United States, you cannot reuse an artificial limb. It's against the federal government, and manufacturers void the warranty. So, because of the materials that the artificial limbs are made out of, they're carbonite, stainless steel, titanium, these things don't disintegrate. You know, they live longer than you and I will, you know, and in a lot of cases, as you know, we've been involved in a 10-year war with a lot of amputees. As you know, in the United States, we have a lot of amputations due to diabetes. Well, the people outgrow their limbs and people die. And just for example, I just had an email from a woman who aunt died. She was a double amputee, and she wanted to know if we wanted to use her aunt's artificial limbs. You know, and of course my answer was yes, and we picked them up. But because of the limbs themselves have a long-lasting life, they can be reused. And so I see it as an opportunity to provide a mobility for someone who cannot afford it in a developing country. Even here in the United States, for a lot of people, an artificial limb is out of reach because artificial limbs start at about $10,000. But Lynn has been in Sierra Leone since about 2000, and I'm going to say 7 or 9. I can't get the correct date, time, but she's been there for a while. And what Lynn has done is, Lynn has a free clinic, and she provides, how do I say, medical exams for people to determine if they have malaria, diabetes, high blood pressure, cholera. She does not do any HIV testing because there are enough NGOs in Sierra Leone doing that. I met Lynn by chance at a dinner. She sat across from me, and she got to tell me her story about Sierra Leone, and of course I was telling her what I do. One of the things that Lynn did and has done while she's been in Sierra Leone, she started the Disability Sport Association, which is made up of amputees and polio soccer players. And as you know, worldwide soccer is looked upon a lot more favorably. Well, it's like we look upon football or basketball here. And I listened to her story, and her and I met, you know, for several weeks, and I finally decided that I would go to Sierra Leone. And I can tell you that I am thankful that I did. It's unlike the Dominican, because I don't speak Spanish. So anytime I was going to the Dominican, I had to get one of my board members to go with me, because he spoke Spanish. Well, I didn't. So I could only go when it was convenient for him. Sierra Leone presented a different situation for me, and an empowering situation for me, because they speak English. Freetown, which is the capital, was founded by American free slaves. So they speak English, they understand English. So it just opened up a more viable situation for Limbs for You. Donors are the lifeline of nonprofits. As you know, we don't have a product to sell. What we, as nonprofits and Limbs for You, is trying to make life better for someone less fortunate than ourselves. So they're very important. The type of donations, we accept all donations in terms of anything having to do with an artificial limb. Doesn't matter whether it's below the knee, above the knee, or the upper extremities. We do not take wheelchairs. We'll take forearm crutches, because soccer players use those forearm crutches to play soccer with. We'll take soccer balls, we'll take rehab equipment, that treadmill that you went out and purchased that now is a coat hanger, we'll take that from you. But things like that. Tricycles for the kids, because we do have kids that are amputees and kids that have polio. So, things like that we can take. The reason we don't take wheelchairs and other devices is because now it takes us away from what we are comfortable in doing. And in a lot of cases, wheelchairs in countries like Sierra Leone or other developing countries aren't necessarily the right instrument due to the rugged terrain, due to the weather conditions. Right now it's the rainy season in Sierra Leone, and when it's not like the rain in Seattle, if you will, it's a rain, and where roads and streets are flooded out. So a wheelchair becomes a hindrance in some cases. So we try to focus just on, like I said, those components that provide mobility for a polio or a amputee. Well, it's put it on hold. It's what it's done. We were planning to return to Sierra Leone and ship a 40-foot container out of Seattle in November. Of course, that now has been pushed back until we're looking at probably around the first quarter. Aside from that, the economic impact on Sierra Leone is devastating. Particularly when you talk about amputees or people who are physically challenged. People, as I said earlier, in developing countries, their main source of income is by begging. The average wage in countries like Sierra Leone is $2 a day. Today, which started yesterday, for the next 3 days, starting Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, in Sierra Leone, you are not allowed to go no further than 100 feet out of your front door. So a person who's been used to begging for money can now no longer beg for money. So how are they going to survive? Because they're spending that money for food. So now, and the government has not made any provisions to provide food for them, because they're not centrally located. Most of the physically challenged, if we talk about amputees and polio, are somewhat centrally located in Freetown. Well, there's over 2.6 million people living in Freetown. In Sierra Leone, there are other provinces that have physically challenging people. So it's all throughout. It's just not Freetown. It's throughout Sierra Leone. This 3-day shutdown is affecting not only the amputees, but every physically challenged person from making a living. What we're doing now is, as you know, we have a fundraiser coming up on October 17th. What we're doing now is contacting across the United States clinics to provide us with artificial limbs, their surplus limbs, and we're reaching out to sport equipment companies to provide the soccers, balls, and jerseys for the 17 soccer teams that the Disability Association has. We're also working in developing a comprehensive program for the empowerment part of our 3-step program. And that empowerment part will be to make sure that the amputees are being empowered. And what we talk about empowering an amputee is that there's a process to get the artificial limb, and that they understand fully what that process is. At the end of that process, they will have the ability to either open up their own business, to be employed by a company in Sierra Leone, They'll be able to attend the school if that's what they want to do. So it's allowing us time to fully develop that, so when we get back to Sierra Leone, that we can implement that. One of the things that we'll do upon returning to Sierra Leone, we'll become a member of the Chamber of Commerce. That gives us a direct line to the employers in Sierra Leone as well. I have now the latest headset, not Dr. Dre, but there's the latest one out is an LG 900. You wrap it around your neck. You know, it's wireless and Bluetooth, and I can stick it in my ear. You know, it's wireless. I'm not walking around with a wire like everybody else. You know. So things like that, you know, I like. I don't have downtime. I mean, you do and you don't. Go to a movie. You know, I'll take in a movie. I'll go for a walk. Living in Seattle and living pretty close to the Seattle Center, they have a great water fountain. And so I'll take a book and pretend to read my book while I people watch. Science of Mind is what I'm reading now, rereading. The last movie was the Morgan Freeman, Lucy. Yeah, yeah. A mentor. A mentor. Yeah. I don't know.